Now let's look at an example where we have a medical application of dimensional analysis. You have an order to infuse 1,000 milliliters of D5W, which is 5% dextrose in water, IV, over a period of 5 hours. No pump is available, but the tubing set package notes that the drop factor is 10 GTT per milliliter. How would you adjust the drip rate, which should be in GTT per minute? And the abbreviation GTT equals a drop, and this is from a Latin word meaning drop. So here is the pertinent information that we pulled from the problem. 1,000 milliliters of D5W over 5 hours, 10 GTT per milliliter, and we're trying to calculate the drip rate at GTT per minute. Notice that I have a question mark here to indicate that this is what I'm looking for as just a little reminder when I'm looking at that information. Notice that the problem on the previous slide was very long and there was a lot of information in there, but a lot of it we didn't actually need to solve the problem. So it's always useful to pull out the actual information you need, the numerical values that are given, so that you can kind of simplify and focus on that instead of focusing on a long text. So let's look at this. Of the units we're given, we see we have milliliters and hours, and then we have GTT per milliliter. So we see some connections between those. They both have things of milliliters, and we know that we're trying to get to GTT in our answer. Notice that we're given an amount over time, because we have 1,000 milliliters over 5 hours, and we're trying to find an amount over time, which is GTT per minute. So both of those have the same basic relationship, an amount over time. So we're going to start with our given information, 1,000 milliliters over 5 hours. Notice that 1,000 milliliters over 5 hours is not given as a fraction in the problem. We have to look at the context of the sentence to recognize that this is forming a fraction of 1,000 milliliters over 5 hours. Some things that you can look for are the words for every or per. So if I said 1,000 milliliters per 5 hours, that's a good indication that I'm dealing with a fraction that's just not written as a fraction. So we're starting with our 1,000 milliliters over 5 hours, and we're going to again focus on one unit at a time. And I'm going to start with the milliliters for no other reason than it's in the numerator. You could just as easily start with hours and you would get the exact same answers because you're going to do the same steps just in a different order. So we have milliliters in our numerator, which means I need milliliters in the denominator so that those units would cancel. And when I look back at the information given in the problem, I see that I've got a relationship that involves milliliters, which is 10 GTT per milliliter. Now, the reason I know that I'm going to use this instead of a milliliters to liters is because nowhere in my problem is it mentioning liters. And if I did put a relationship in there that didn't work, I would quickly find that the units would not cancel out correctly and I would not end up with the right units for my answer. And this is one of the reasons it's so important to put units in for all of your numbers so you can make sure that your units are canceling out correctly. If your units are wrong, your answer is never going to be right. So here we have milliliters in the numerator and milliliters in the denominator that cancel out. If I stopped here, I would have units of GTT per hour. I see that's still an amount over time, but it's not the amount over time that I actually want for this problem. So I'm going to continue on, and now I'm going to focus on the denominator and have hours on the bottom. So I need to put 1 hour in the numerator because I want those units to cancel. And I'm going to put 60 minutes on the bottom because 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. Again, there has to be a relationship between what's in the numerator and the denominator. And I see the hours cancels out. And when I look at the units that are left, I see I have GTT over minutes, which is exactly what's being asked for in the problem. Now, I can do the calculation and solve for my answer and get 33 GTT per minute.